Hello, history scholars. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about how we got from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution of the United States. It's a really, really important concept or event to understand because it almost flopped and we almost didn't create the US Constitution that we live under today. So, I want to back up a little bit and talk about what was going on in 1785. So in 1785, our founding fathers they knew that the Articles of Confederation had some problems. All right, they knew that there were holes in it, and so they started to meet. The first place that they met was at Mount Vernon. This was George Washington's house and estate, and they talked about how to improve trade, and it worked fairly well. So they thought, hey, let's meet again. So they met again in 1786. This was the second convention, and they met in Annapolis. However, only 5 states appeared. Only 5 states came, and this shows historians that perhaps states at this point in time were not feeling the urgency to improve the Articles of Confederation. But lo and behold, Daniel Shea and his rebellion, Shea's Rebellion, happened in 1786, and that really made our founding fathers realize that they needed to get their rears in gear and basically change the Articles of Confederation. And so they met in between May and December of 1787 at the Constitutional Convention. And they met in Philadelphia at Independence Hall, and there were about 55 men. They were all rich and white, businessmen, lawyers, etc. And they talked about how to improve the Articles of Confederation. So people that were involved, people like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, James Madison, they came together and discussed how they could improve it. So at this convention, James Madison presented a plan called the Virginia Plan. And his proposal was that we should have 3 branches of government. It would have checks and balances. It would have a bicameral, meaning 2 branches. Bi means 2, legislative branch. And we should also have an executive branch and a judicial branch. So let's talk first of all, under the Virginia Plan, what the legislative branch would look like. He proposed, again, 2 houses, meaning bicameral. There would be an upper and a lower house, and they would be both of the houses would be based on population of the state. And the upper house would have a lot of power. The upper house would elect the members of the lower house. The upper house would also elect the president. And the upper house would also choose and elect or appoint the members of the Supreme Court. All right, this executive branch under the Virginia Plan would be a single person. It would be elected by the upper house, and this person would enforce laws, and they would also be in charge of the military. Under the Virginia Plan, the judicial branch would be a system of courts, and there would be a Supreme Court, and again, those members would be elected by the upper house. All right, so that is what James Madison proposed during this convention. Now, that's all well and good. However, the smaller states, because Virginia was one of the most populated states, okay, in the Union at this point in time. And so smaller states, less populated states like New Jersey were like, yeah, we don't like the idea of having a legislative branch to, the bicameral being based on population. And so there was a man named William Patersen who presented his ideas, and his ideas were presented in the New Jersey Plan. So his idea was that instead of having a bicameral legislature, he proposed a unicameral legislature. So there would only be one house, and it would not be based on population. It would just be equal representation between the states. And so every state would have the same number of reps. Okay. So there was gridlock then between the Virginia Plan and the New Jersey Plan. And people, the Americans at this convention were up in arms. There was anger, there was fighting, there was gridlock. And finally, the convention almost fell apart, but finally, Roger Sherman came up with what we know now as the Great Compromise. And really, you guys, this did save the convention, and it led us to actually being able to write the Constitution of the United States, which is what we live under now. So the Great Compromise did provide for a bicameral Congress, and so that means that there were two houses. However, instead of having two houses based on population, which the smaller states did not find fair, that they would have one of each. And so the House of Representatives would be the branch of the legislative branch that would be based on population. And so states that had more people would have more representatives. And the other branch of the legislature would be the Senate. And this would not be a branch based on population. It would basically be that every state had the same number of representatives. And so the Great Compromise, again, like I said, it saved the Constitutional Convention, and people adopted it. They were like, this great compromise, thank you, Roger Sherman, good man, thank you so much. Because then they were able to move forward with that plan, and that is what our government looks like today. 3 branches of government. We have the legislative, we have the executive, and we have the judicial. The legislative branch is our House of Representatives and our Senate. The House of Representatives is based on population of states. And so, for example, Washington State has fewer representatives than, say, California. Okay. Whereas Washington State and California have the exact same number of Senate members. Washington has 2, California has 2. And so, because of that, everybody applauded it. Okay. So today, like I said, we have the legislative, we have the judicial, and we have the executive branch. And it was a go. So hopefully, you guys, that helps you understand how we got from the Articles of Confederation to actually being able to create the Constitution of the United States. Thanks.